introduce Alana Fowler, and comes to us from Grass Valley, from Fowler Family Farm. And I think I'll let you take it away from here, and we'll have her give it a little presentation, and then Ken Muller from Cape Valley, Pasture 42, and then we'll have some conversation with all of us together.
Sounds good. I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you very much for having me today. I put a very simple slide together for you guys. We'll kind of go through it. A little history about me is I started raising pastured poultry in about 2006. We started with hens and broilers. From there, we added turkeys, and I also did some pullets for some just custom work. I raised them to about 12 to 16 weeks of age and then sold them. So right now we raise some layers. We also have cattle, sheep, goats, and I raise turkeys once a year. And I can, please stop me and ask me questions. I'm happy to share any information. I have lots of stories if you want to hear anything specific, but so our first slide just shows a little bit about this little logo was our very first logo. It was kind of fun, and then we transitioned to kind of just a cleaner logo, I guess. We started it was all direct to consumer. I did raise some eggs for our local co-op at that time, but mostly it was direct to consumer.
That's the expert.
Oh,
you got it.
okay, I got it. I don't know why it was doing this. Okay,
Got it.
so just for me, green pastures was essential to our operation. It was what we found that the market wanted in a pastured product. There's, you know, from omega-3s to vitamin A and D, you see the increase in the pastured eggs and the meat as well. So we decided that that was something that was super important to us. So we always had green pasture available, whether it was our pullets, our broilers, or our hens. We stacked enterprises a lot. We never had just one thing going on, and that was essential to being successful for us. So I have some pictures. These were pullets. I have some turkeys down in the corner. We had a couple years that we tried the Christmas goose as well. I think we did that for 2 years. Multi-species. We ran our chickens in front of all of our other animals, and that was a huge benefit. We tried to have our poultry on pasture once a year if it was dry land, meaning there was no irrigation available on that pasture, or we would run them about 2 or 3 times on the irrigated pasture. For markets, we went to the farmers market for about 10 years. And we also started a meat CSA, and the meat CSA was huge for us at the time because it allowed us to have a market during the winter. Our markets up in Grass Valley are not year round. They're only May through September. So when you still have product and chickens laying, that was essential to do the CSA and have people still coming to the farm to pick up from us. Processing, we did both. We sent birds down to a USDA plant, and we also processed on farm. We found that processing on farm was more economical for us. And well, it was more economical for the consumer too. You didn't have the higher cost to take it to a USDA plant, and there's some other we were having some other issues with the plant at the time. So we can talk about that if anybody wants to talk about that. For us, we were super creative, we were flexible and super thrifty. So this is one of our coops that we made. We went and picked up it was an old trailer, like 16 feet, and we tore the whole thing off of the frame, and my husband rebuilt it. So it kind of shows the first stages of it being rebuilt. It shows the interior. We chose a slatted floor, and that worked really well. Manure would build up a little bit in some corners, but for the most part, it would all just fall underneath the coop. And this particular coop was moved about once a week, and then the netting around it was moved every couple days. And then over on this other side, you can see the doors so that we didn't have to go inside the coop to collect the eggs. Those were all the hen baskets, or egg baskets. And family, this is just, we have 5 girls. We started raising pasture poultry as a necessity to substitute some income. We now do some poultry. We also run goats and sheep for vegetation management. And over the last 10 years, we have bounced back and forth over which enterprise has given us the most income. And right now it is the goats and sheep, but we still do some pasture poultry as well. And just having family that can help you was pretty crucial for us too. I think, this is kind of my passion. I like to get the community involved. In our community, I'm involved with a couple organizations that do farm tours. So you can see one picture up here on the right is our goat operation, and then down on the left, they're at the farm touring the poultry operation. We just, when you have people come out and they're invested in the farm and they see what you're doing, they like to support you. And I believe that's it. So if you guys have any questions, or I'm not sure how we can proceed from here, but.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, I'm Ken Muller from 42. We're a farm about an hour outside of Davis, Cape Valley. And we have about 2,000 to 2,500 laying hens, all in pasture. We also do a little bit as far as broilers. We've done turkeys. We do quail for eggs, and we do a little bit, a few ducks for eggs and meat as well. So most of the species of poultry there. So I'll talk a little bit about pasture management and then house design, and then some more of the specifics of our particular business. So we like to follow the, what a lot of people now term the 5 rules of soil health, which is to keep the soil covered with armor all the time, to minimize soil disturbance. So in our case, it means using no-till drill as much as possible and having permanent pasture whenever we can. To maximize plant diversity, to have a continual live plant root in the ground at all time, and to integrate livestock into pasture operation. So yeah, integration is a big part of what we do in order to make the farm profitable. So we never do just one species. We'll do poultry alternated with either sheep or cattle, or we'll do poultry integrated into our orchards. We grow olives, almonds, citrus, and a few fruit trees as well. And we'll run the poultry and the sheep through that in order to stack enterprises. And that's to, because there are some symbiotic benefits to having all those together, and also in order to get more dollars per square foot, basically. Because land costs a fortune, and keeping it green grass growing, irrigating all that costs a fortune, so we have to be able to run one species out there at a time. So here's a picture of some more pasture right now. This is an alfalfa field, which we've overseeded in the fall with wheat, daikon radishes, and probably a little bit of peas, beans, vetch, oats, barley. We stick as many things in there as we possibly can because, again, there's a lot of symbiotic benefits to having more species there. It helps the microbes and the fungus, bacteria. Everyone benefits from having a more diverse community with the roots, and the animals benefit too. You know, the chickens love the alfalfa and the radishes. Those daikon radishes get huge, and the chickens will go out there and just peck them. They love them. They grow back pretty well. And then let's see, here's some more. This is another picture of pasture right now. This time of year, this is the best time of year for pasture because everything's green and wet. In the summer, we will overseed our pastures with summer annuals, which sedan grass or sorghum sedan are great for that. They grow like crazy in the heat. So we'll use a no-till drill and go over the top of our either alfalfa, or we have some pastures with orchard grass, fescue, clover. And so the best system is to have a permanent pasture and overseed it with summer annuals in the summer and winter annuals in the fall, and they'll grow all the way through the spring. Here is a new planting of olives that we did, and we've planted them extremely far apart. They're 30 feet between the rows, which is a long way, longer than anyone else ever goes. And we have then seeded, this is just an annual crop in there. We seeded, and that again is oats, and radishes, beans, peas, veg, a whole bunch of different things in there. And so we've caged them all, so we can put the sheep and chickens through there as well. So we'll use it basically as a pasture with trees in the middle. And then as the trees get bigger, they'll provide more shade for the animals as well. And the manure will help the trees grow. And since we're going to pasture anyway, and using a lot of water to do that, we hope to get the tree roots to grow out further rather than just, if you trip all the trees, they'll be fine, but the root system will be pretty small right around the tree. So that we'll get the roots to spread out further and they'll benefit the trees. So here are some of our coops. We bunch them up as much as possible and move them all together as often as possible. So we found that grazing chickens is not as different as grazing cattle as you might think. In that, if you guys have heard of mob grazing or management intensive grazing, basically you want to put a lot of animals onto an area intensely and then move them off as quickly as possible. So that you get a short burst of stress on the grass, and that has a long recovery period afterwards. So we will move what we've done here and what we do most of the time is we move all our chickens into about a 3 to 4 acre area surrounded by electric net fence with a dog in there for protection. And then every 3 to 4 days, we'll move the house themselves and they'll just creep forward a little bit. Because especially in the summer, most of the damage or the chicken activity is right around the house, you know, like right in the shade or on the waters, on the feeders. So we'll move the feeders and waters every day, even just a few feet away to spread out the impact, and then move the houses themselves every 3 to 4 days. But one time that doesn't work is once in a while in the winter when it gets really wet, you have to balance the damage you're going to do to your pasture from driving on it with a tractor to move your houses versus the benefit you're going to get from moving them. So we have to stretch that once in a while, but we try to build houses that are light and easy to move so we can move them as much as possible. That's really the most important thing with poultry is move. Some people will move them as often as every day. I find that to be a little bit excessive. You have to balance the amount of labor that's going to take you, but moving as often as possible is the best. Here is me moving a house. We move them all with this small tractor. Any house that can't be moved with this tractor is too big. So we want a fleet of light, rapid, quick, easy to move houses. Yes?
I have a question. What breeds of dog have you found most effective for protection of poultry?
We've only had a few dogs we tried. Found the personality of dogs more important than the breed. We have a Tibetan Mastiff and Pyrenees cross, which is great. He stays out there. He does a great job. Bark, keeps predators away. We have 2 purebred Pyrenees who are not great. So I've heard the success rate with livestock guardian dogs is about 50%. So just if their personality is right. I don't know. I'm sure they're much better dog trainers than me out there, but we got lucky with one. I'll get lucky with those 2. So, but as far as predator control, dogs are really the only thing we found to be effective. I mean, electric net fences are great. They help. But bobcats can jump right over, raccoons will find a way through, skunks will go right underneath, which the skunks don't eat the chickens, but they'll eat any eggs that are out. They'll eat your feed. Electric net fences do work with coyotes and your neighbor's dogs, which is important.
Right.
They are a source of problems as well. So I'll go, the way we move the houses is we close all the doors every night for predator control. And then I'll go out, this is really late, but usually I go out before light every day and move some of the houses every day. So I'm constantly moving something. And then that way I like to let the chickens out as soon as it's light, so they're not in there any more time than they have to be. Here is after a house has been on this pasture for 3 days, I think. So that's the amount of manure that's built up right there after 3 days. So you can see after that amount of time, it's really too long. Once you have the ground completely covered, you'll get an area that starts to be so burned with too much nitrogen that it'll actually can kill that area. And you'll see that square or your rectangle there for years afterwards sometime. So this is about perfect here. It's good. It'll provide nutrition for the grass, but not so much that it's going to kill it. Yeah.
Sorry, another question about predators. Do you have to deal with any reptiles, or is it just mammals?
Not that we know of, just mammals. We've had cameras out there at night, and raccoons are the most common, bobcats, and neighbor's dog. So that's we have seen foxes, and but everything likes to eat chicken, so I wouldn't be surprised. But in our area, it's not a problem. Here is a picture of some quail. This is just before we move them, so they've been in this spot for about 3 days here. They are. We keep them inside in like a Joel Salatin style coop all the time. In the winter, we have shade or greenhouse material to keep them warm in there. They're much more temperature sensitive than chickens are. And we also, the quail and the chickens, we use hen lights, which is a supplemental lighting system, which is on solar and it automatically adjusts to the day length. And that's really helped us maintain our egg laying throughout the year. So in the summer, the hen light won't come on at all. And then as the days shorten, it'll come on longer and longer and longer period of census and automatically adjust. So this time of year, it's on for quite a few hours in the morning only. And then it's right now it's coming on a little bit less every day. It's basically longer again. And that's really helped us. One of the biggest challenges with pasture poultry production is the changes in egg production throughout the year. Because we'll get 3 times as many eggs, 4 times as many eggs sometimes in the spring as we do in the winter. And most of the time your customers want the same or more eggs in the winter as they do in the spring. So evening that out is really the key that we found to profitability. One other thing we've done as far as that goes is when we get a new flock, we aim to have them start laying in the fall so that they lay strongly through the winter. And if we have them start laying in the spring, then that just exacerbates the problem of having too many eggs. Here is pasture after the chickens have been through it, but not right into the coop. So it actually looks kind of like after cattle or sheep would have gone through there. It's all trampled down. They've eaten some of these are daikon radishes in there they've eaten. And that looks good. That'll come back nicely now. So next time we'll go through the sheep and cows next for one pass, and then before we come back to the chickens again after that. So that's what we want. We want everything nice and trampled, but not taken down too far, because they have some slides up here of bad pasture management. Yeah, here's a spot where the chickens were left for far too long. And you can see this is mostly fescue and orchard grass up here. And they're bunch grasses, so they killed everything in between the bunches. They've eaten all the clover, anything else that was out there, and just left these bunches of tough grass out there. So that's exactly what we don't want to do. Because that'll come back. It'll the problem will get worse and worse and worse every year. And what we've had happen is that then Bermuda grass starts to invade in there, because it is kind of immune to the chicken scratching, because it mostly can live underground, or its roots are deep underground, and then it'll come back. So you get Bermuda grass or other weeds invading your pastures. In the background, you can't really see, but it's one of our shade structures. So we have this is an equipment carrier with a big shade cloth on top that we rotate around with the animals as well, because shade is very important. And again, on hot days, they'll congregate in the shade. So the more shade you can have, the better. Here is another example of what not to do. So we built all our own houses, except this year there was an online auction and there were these chicken houses on there. cheap, so I bought them. And they were just massive. They were so heavy that the first time it rained, they got stuck. We cannot move them. These things are made out of giant I-beams, and we have a massive tractor that can barely move them. And so it got stuck. We can't move it. And so the chickens have taken our beautiful pasture down to nothing here. So it was a mistake that I knew was probably going to happen. I shouldn't have done it. But again, you want your houses small and mobile. So here's one of our small houses. It's small enough to move with an ATV when it's dry, or a small tractor, and we have a whole fleet of these. And right now this is going through an almond orchard.
What kind of chassis is that?
This is an old cotton trailer. So in the Central Valley, there was a big cotton industry, which is now mostly gone. And so further down south, there are a lot of these cotton trailers available. So that makes it easy. It was a big, big rectangle with the sides on it already. We just put roofs in there, put a roof on, and that was it. So we widened all the axles. So you can see this next picture too. We put a second set of wide axles on here because we want to be able to take our coops down embankments, up hills, wherever. And also we put a double set of axles on a lot of them to spread out the weight a little bit better so you don't sink in and get stuck or damage your pasture as much, because chickens can, like I showed before, they can be a real damage to your pasture as well as the ruts created by driving out there all the time. So, and we want to avoid that. We want them to be a positive influence. Yeah.
I see the pool is quite open. How do you keep them warm during winter season?
We don't have to worry about that much around here. It's so warm. Chickens are pretty hardy. We have to worry much more about the too much heat. So we try to keep them as open as possible. Like you're saying before, the feed, light, air, water, space, sanitation thing, less and more light, gives them more air, keeps it more sanitary. So all coops we build now are all metal, no wood at all, except for the roofs, which they roost on, that's all. Because it's a lot easier to clean. Most of the manure falls right through without a problem. Easier to build, change things, stronger, last longer. And it harbors a lot fewer pests and things, a lot cleaner that way. And also for sanitation and for egg breakage, we've got all roll-out nest boxes. So these are, the chickens lay their eggs in there, they get up, it rolls down, and we collect them in that trough down below. And it really cuts down on egg eating, which is, can be a big source of problem. And also, originally we had located nest boxes in the chicken coops where you get chickens sleeping in there all the time. This way, now we have them all external. And so at night, when we're closing in the doors, we just go through and quickly check, make sure there's no chickens sleeping in the nest boxes, so our eggs come out much, much cleaner. So it's really been worth it. But the one thing is we have to let the chickens out before sunrise every day because they'll start laying eggs on the ground. But that gets me up early. Here's our livestock guardian dog. The good one. And here's a picture of some of the eggs we've collected. And you can see the clean ones are probably from the roll-out nest boxes. We do still have some of the non-roll-out nest boxes, and you can see the much dirtier eggs in there. And it's night and day. It saves time as far as the cleaning, tons of time as far as the cleaning goes. Yeah.
Have you ever felt a mobile coop that could be moved by hand?
Oh, we have. Yeah, we've done that as well. So I would build your coops to fit whatever system you have. If you have your own labor, build coops you can easily move by hand. If you have a small tractor, build a coop you can easily move with a small tractor, even a truck or anything like that. Because the easier it is to move, the more likely you are to move it, which is going to be better for your pasture, better for your chickens, better for your eggs. So movement, that's the key. And here is chickens coming out in the morning. So I can get into any other questions about chickens. Yeah.
Do you find there's a ideal size to the groups? Do you separate, have like 50 here and 20 there?
We've built most of our coops to fit around 250 chickens, and that's what can comfortably roost in there. And again, that's less space than the animal welfare approved would require, but they're only in there when they go to sleep to when they wake up. So they're just perched there is all when we let them out. So yeah, about 250 chickens per group. And that's just because that seems to be the good coop size that we can move easily. And so the way we've done it is each group will go in its own coop, and once you get them to live in this coop, they'll go there all the time for the rest of their life. They'll go there every night. And so we know the age of our birds based on the age of the whole flock. They're all the same age. So right now we have some 2019 chickens, some that were born in 2018, and our old ones which were born in 2017. So when it comes time to cull a flock, it's easy to pick out who we're gonna cull. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how far you move your coops when you move them?
We move them. So if we're just gonna move them forward, we'll move them maybe about 2 house lengths forward. So, and we judge it based on, if you go out there and look and see where the majority of the damage to the pasture is, or the trampling, we'll move them about that same distance forward again, which usually comes out to about 2 house lengths. And again, when it's cool, they'll spread out more. When it's hot, they'll spread out less. So we kind of base it on that. In the wintertime, you'll actually get more manure deposited in one spot because the nights are 16 hours. In the summer, they're 8 hours. So we move them more often so we don't get too much manure burn below the house. And then also it depends on the age of the chickens. The young ones are much more active, much more destructive to pasture. Old chickens slow down a lot, lay fewer eggs, don't move as much, so we don't have to move as often. Let's see, what should I go into here? Sales, we sell all either direct to consumer or under our own label. So we sell to co-ops, farmers markets, mostly butcher shop. And so we really strive to make each dozen of eggs very pretty. So we have a lot of green eggs, blue eggs, white eggs. It's a big seller, unfortunately, is the color of the egg. We sell anywhere from $6.50 to $9 a dozen in the Bay Area at the farmers markets. And we chose those prices because that's about the same as what other people are charging. That's also about what we have to charge to make any money. Because we feed all organic feed. We have a lot of labor to move the houses, collect the eggs, wash the eggs, buy the cartons, buy the labels, all that kind of stuff. So we figure it costs us about $5.50 a dozen to $6 a dozen probably to produce the eggs. It's kind of rough, and we're not that great at tracking our feed conversion ratio. But one thing, it varies greatly throughout the year also. In the winter, with open houses, they eat more, lay less. In the summer, they eat less and lay more. So it's a lot more profitable in summer, but we have to keep our customers happy by having eggs all year round. So I can get into more on the economics and likes to as well. But like I said earlier, we've concluded we have to stack enterprises. We couldn't make money. We couldn't pay to keep our pastures irrigated just with chickens. So we have to have cattle, sheep, orchards, everything else integrated as well. We need to be getting 2, 3, 4 incomes off one piece of land in order to make it all pay.
You mentioned that you're feeding organic feed. Is your farm certified organic?
We are not certified organic. Well, we have a hayfield certified organic, but we're not certified organic. But the feed is certified organic. Everything we do would be certifiable. We just haven't gone through the work being certified. Mostly just because we talk to almost every customer directly that we meet. We can tell them what we do. We invite people to come out to the farm if they want to and see what we're doing. So we're really not trying to hide anything. So we hope, and it seems like that's fine. You know, certification, I know a lot of farms spend a lot of time, a lot of money doing it. And it's probably important if the only thing the customer sees is your package in a store, or if you're selling to a customer that requires it. But in our case, it hasn't seemed to be worth it, so we've avoided it. We've thought about other certifications too, but it's kind of the same thing. There seems to be kind of certification overload. You know, a lot of people don't even know what all these certifications mean. You get certified for everything now. So at this point, at least, we're not doing it. We're not against them, but it just hasn't been worth the time.
Cost benefit.
Yeah, no, we've got more things we can do already. So let's see. As far as breeds we raise a lot of the brown sexlings for the brown eggs. Some few Australorps, a few Bart Rocks. What else do we have there? Delawares, Rhode Island Reds. We raise for the blue egg layers, some Americanas. For the white egg layers, California Whites. The breed doesn't matter too much. We actually try to get the highest lane breed, which is Isa Brown as far as the brown goes. I think it's more important how you raise them than the breed. As far as broilers, we don't go as far as raising the Cornish cross though. We find them kind of disgusting. I mean, they're like meat animal, you know, just blobs of meat. We raise the Freedom Rangers. We've done Cornish cross, and you know, I don't know. Our customers like the Freedom Rangers though. And for duck, same thing. I don't think I got a picture in here, but we raise khaki Campbells or some other similar high rate of lay egg layer as well. What are the questions we have here?
Thank you for your presentation. Do you do multi-species? And if so, what's the order? Do you start with chicken, then cows, and
Yeah.
what's advantage, disadvantage? Consider different pastures that you have.
So a lot of people like to graze first with the cows and follow right away with the chickens, which that's one way to do it because the chickens will eat the flies, break up the parasite cycle a little bit. But I found that actually puts a lot of stress in your pasture because by the time the cows have gone through it for a day or two or three, by that fourth day, the grass is already starting to regrow. So you want to get your cows off of there. But then if you move your chickens in, they're eating this grass that's just starting to recover. And you come have your chickens come in for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and they kill all those little sprouts, eat them all, and it really sets your pasture back. So what I like to do is graze with the animals, wait until the pasture is recovered, until you get about 4, 5, 6 inches of new growth on there until it's pretty healthy again, maybe even more than that, maybe 7, 8 inches on there, and then come in with the birds. The grass will be nice and lush. The birds will get more benefit, I find. You don't get the fresh manure, but the birds, if you train them to do that, they'll graze a lot. They eat a lot of grass, and you get a real benefit to your egg. You get a nice dark orange yolk out of that. Once you get above about a foot tall of grass, the chickens really won't eat it down anymore. They'll kind of make paths through it. The grass will start to get a little tougher, a little less less useful to the chickens. And so once it gets about a foot high, we'll either put the ruminants back through it, or we'll hay it even. So the chickens, we aim for a sweet spot, probably between 4 and 12 inches of grass. But we usually won't come back with chickens after chickens. We'll usually graze or hay it in between there, just for to break the parasite cycles there. You get a question there?
Yeah. What do you do with the older hens?
We turn them into stewing hens. So we butcher them and sell them, which they actually sell pretty well. Some of the farmers markets, people. And we sell those usually for between $10 and $12 each. So it's not hugely profitable, but it's a way to get rid of them at the end. And we like to kill them before their third winter, because by the third winter, they're laying basically nothing. It costs a ton to feed them. So right now we still have 2017 chickens, which is really too old. We're paying more to feed them than we're getting out of them. So ideally we'd have only chickens born in 2018 and 2019 right now. And we'll start getting our new chicks in early February this year. So yeah, the egg laying, especially with the ISO browns, it's crazy at the beginning. They lay a ton and then they drop off pretty quickly. So we like to cycle through. It pays off, a little more work, but it pays off to have young chickens all the time. But again, we have many different ages, so we have less of a problem with so much of a big drop or like one giant molt altogether. We have always someone, we hopefully always have someone coming in to lay and maintaining our production a little bit.
What is your label?
Our label, we are Pasture 42, and I don't have a picture of it here. Our label is it's a chicken standing on a 42 with a clover in its mouth. We had it designed on 99designs.com. It cost about $30, but it was totally worth it. It's a good way to go. You get designers from all over the world who will submit you a logo, and you can choose them, and it's a cheap way to get your logo.
Designers.
What's that?
What was the?
99 Designs. There's some other ones that do the same thing. but it's an online thing. You put up how much money you want to give, and that determines how good of designs you get, basically.
When you sell the older hens as stewing chickens, do you find you have to educate your customers about like what to do with that bird? Or do they
Sometimes,
kinda know?
but broth is really popular. A lot of people are really into it. Naturally, when you raise broilers, the feet are more popular than the birds are. If we could raise a 4-footed chicken, it'd be great. Everyone wants chicken feet, you know. So for the most part, they sell pretty quickly. Yeah. Good.
Just curious, is there anything special about the color of the eggs?
The color, no, it's visually appealing. So people are attracted to pretty things. So, you know, when you go to the farmer's market, we try to make a giant display of eggs. We have big posters, we have colorful eggs, we have bright thing, you know, we just try to create a big, pretty display, and it works. You know, if you see people there with just a flat table standing there doing nothing, they don't sell anything, and people are attracted to the big, full display. So, it's just human nature. Yes.
I noticed a slide with quail.
Yeah.
How do you market those?
We raise them mostly for eggs. We'll sell some of the males because we hatch our own. We'll sell some of them for meat. But I should have brought a picture of the carton. They're beautiful. We have these miniature quail cartons, which we had to get 25,000 of them from on a pallet of them. So we have enough quail egg cartons for years. But they're beautiful little eggs. They look like they're hand painted, and they're small. They're like this big, so a dozen will be this big, and we sell them for $8 a dozen. Mostly in the Bay Area because people are willing to pay that there for quail eggs. Some people really like them. Some people buy them for the novelty. They're using a lot of ethnic dishes, a lot of soups from around the world. A lot of times they're boiled. Some fancy chefs now will cook a steak and crack it on the top, cook a pizza and crack it on the top and let it finish cooking. But a lot of, they're not common in the US, but a lot of the rest of the world uses them quite a bit. So we find that they're pretty popular. And we pickle them as well. So we have little jars of pickled quail eggs. And we do sweet beet, turmeric, spicy jalapeno, garlic. We have a bunch of different flavors, and those have been pretty popular too. Yeah.
We have a couple questions online. Do you irrigate your pasture in the summer, and how many employees do you have?
Yeah, we irrigate everything. We have a pretty good source of irrigation water. Again, it's in California, so it's not always assured. But that is why we try to overseed pastures with summer annuals, because you get much more growth for your irrigation dollar out of summer annuals. They'll grow like crazy when it's hot. Whereas a lot of the perennial cool season grasses like orchard grass and fescue, ryegrass, things like that, you'll irrigate them all summer and you'll barely get any growth. And by the time they get this tall, they'll be kind of overgrown and too thick for the chickens or even cows really like. So summer annuals do really well. Alfalfa does really well here in the summer. Again, it likes water, but it has deep roots, so it's more drought tolerant. And you can get away with irrigating alfalfa as little as once a month, whereas the summer or the winter perennials you have to irrigate, around here every week. So it's a lot of water. So we try to minimize water use, but yeah, it's essential. But having your chickens, even if you don't have irrigated pasture, having your chickens outside, even on dry grass, is better than having them inside. They'll still get some benefit from there. And we raise ours all on pretty good pasture, but chickens are also useful. If you have a patch of non-fertile land that's not really good for anything, you don't have any irrigation on it, if you put your chickens on it, especially this time of year when it's rained and you get little annual grasses coming up, you'll get a lot of benefit. It'll add needed nutrients to that land. And next year in that spot, you can see where you've had your chickens, the grass will grow back better. So it's also a good way to make use of otherwise non-usable land. As far as the number of employees, we have anywhere from 4 to 8 people working on the farm. Some of them are part-time, and it varies throughout the season. But me and my wife and my dad, and then 3 to 6 other people. So a lot of people, but that's what it takes. Any other questions?
It seems like we're kind of moving into the conversation part of this.
Yeah.
Maybe I could invite both of you to take a seat here and we'll adjust the cameras. So I think we'll just carry on the conversation, and I have questions, but as long as questions are coming here, I mean, I think you covered some of the really wonderful topics. I mean, the kinds of pasture you covered, the types of species that are in your pasture, how often you move those coops. The order of rotation, I think is fascinating that both of you have multiple species and actively do multi-species grazing, stacking and keeping the 5 rules of organic soil health.
Soil, yeah.
Excuse me. And I guess some of the things that are interesting are, so you're feeding organic too. Are you also organic?
We were feeding both non-GMO and the certified.
Yeah.
At one time, we just had 2 different markets. We had some people that wanted the certified organic and some that just wanted a lower price point. So,
Right.
and
And
then
then
we had the non-GMO.
how did you, just talking about profitability a little bit more generally, how do you price your product? How do you know that you're covering their costs?
The latest was a little more difficult.
It's a long lead up to before they.
Right, so we would start everybody from chicks, but we would figure out what we had in them feed wise, energy wise for the lights, time that you have into them by the time they start laying, and then what you're feeding the whole group each day and how many eggs. We'd have to balance that over the years. We would keep them for 2 years, I think. And we would stew them as well. The meat birds are a lot easier where it's inputs in compared to how much meat you get out of them. And it gives you a super easy formula.
So how do you keep your records kind of day to day? Do you just?
Day to day, I have a notebook.
Phone? No,
It's a notebook.
the old
Yeah, I like to write.
notebook.
Don't hit. Not a very good record keeper.
But you know what your costs are enough to
Yeah, no, we
figure it
figured
out.
yeah, we
Your
figured it
production
out.
costs.
Yeah, so, again, it's not exact, but,
And how did you've raised a variety of different animals. You said you're maximizing profits, choosing the species. So you have some idea about what break-even costs are and what is providing enough profit to keep the business going.
Right. I would say for us, finding those niche markets is important to profitability. That was, we did not have a say in the area. And that was something that was being asked of us, and that allowed us to continue and ask a fair price. And we raise turkeys seasonally because you can make more money off of them once a year than you can all throughout the year.
Right.
yeah, we try to either find niche markets as well, or kind of base what we raise based on number one, what we like to do, what grows well or does well on our land, but also what customers are demanding, what there seems to be a hole in the market for. So we started raising chickens just right after the omnivore's dilemma came out, and everyone just suddenly wanted pastured broilers. It was crazy. So we started raising those because it was like the in thing
And
to
even
do.
freedom rangers, not just.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And then we got more into laying hens because they provide, we just like doing that better. I'm not a big fan of butchering chickens. And then it's also just a steady year-round thing. It's used to keep people employed that way because you have work every day, all the time. It means you have to be there all the time, but if you structure your life around that, then it's steady work all year round. So that's worked out. And we've tried many other things that haven't been successful or we haven't found work before. We've raised pheasants, we've grown heirloom wheat, we've grown, all kinds of different things. And some have been semi-successful, some have dropped. So we're trying to kind of figure out what works and what's been popular.
Well, and you bring up an interesting fact because we've done the same thing in balancing what you raise in some years. You raise more. We were raising hogs as well, and it seems like it over 10 or 12 years, it's kind of a back and forth as to what people demand and what's working and what's not, and you're always changing things and always looking at your bottom line, and so sometimes don't just go into something saying, this is what I'm raising, and if it doesn't work, then I'm done. Be flexible in it.
You're adapting to your markets, and you're also taking into account your quality of life.
Yeah.
You mentioned what you like doing and
Yeah, we milked cows for a long time and stopped doing that. Largely because of quality of life issues. You know, it was being there twice a day, every day at the exact same time was just, yeah, it's in your life schedule. So we cut back to once a day milking, which was better, but even then, it's just something you have to do every day at the exact same time, or have someone very qualified to do.
right.
If you can't be there, where it's a little easier to have someone feed chickens than it is to get someone to milk a cow. So
So you're using a lot of different criteria, your own quality, your family quality of life, and your health of your land,
Mhm.
and your employees, and then the environment, the economics, the quality of life.
I think it all has to come into play to be sustainable, or it's not sustainable anymore.
And have you used any kind of calculator budgeting tools? There's a few of them out there that, I don't know, I'm just curious whether any of those have been useful, and I can have a resource list that I can share.
Yeah, we have actually taken the UC farm business planning class twice. And that really is good because you get a lot of those calculators and you sit down and you do them. And you get a lot of feedback. You have 3 or 4, I think we had 6 couples in one group, and you get a lot of feedback, and you're using the calculators and getting opinions from other people about your numbers. You know, you're putting your numbers together, then somebody else is giving you opinions on your numbers, and it kind of really makes reality come to light with what's going on in your operation, not just your opinion.
And you're buying feed, since feed cost is a really high thing, are you buying in bulk, or how, coordinating with anybody, or just?
yeah, we buy in bulk. We have Bar Ale, who's out of Williams. They deliver and put it right in our silos. So that's easy. Get a much better price that way than any other way.
And in the silos, it's protected from rodents,
Yeah.
moisture, and all that.
Yeah, so that works really well. And they, you know, order about a week at
And
a
that's
time, it shows
a
up.
mix,
and-
that's a complete ration.
Yeah, so we feed just a starter and then a layer ration. So that's all we have. We haven't gotten anything in between, but it's 22% protein and then down to a 17% layer ration.
And that's what we did as well. We would split it when we needed to split it because we're a smaller operation. So we would order it and we would have a friend show up and they'd dump part of it into our bin, and part of it into their bin, and that worked well for us. But going from even buying a pallet from the feed store to buying bulk directly from the wholesaler was a huge.
Yeah, it's much cheaper. We have a lot of
Yeah.
other neighboring farms who have 50, 100 chickens who come by, feed from us then.
Right.
Okay.
And egg cartons too. We 3 farms around us. We'll buy a truckload of egg cartons together.
Wow.
So yeah,
So when you buy in bulk, they're a lot
yeah.
cheaper per
So we'll
carton.
get like, I don't know, 20,000 egg cartons, and they'll get 30,000 egg cartons, and, you know, and just a year of egg cartons all at once, which costs a lot, but it ends up being a lot cheaper than buying them any other way.
Other questions?
So my question, I don't know whether you answered, so are you supplementing your income through, on top of the income you get from poultry, or that's the only income you have? And is it enough to sustain?
So chickens are eggs are our biggest seller, but our next biggest sellers are olive oil and olives, which are nothing to do with poultry. We also try to integrate the chickens into our olive orchards, and then fruit is another big seller. So yeah, we found we have to have a lot of different things. If we're going to the farmer's market anyway, if someone comes to buy olive oil, they might also buy your eggs and your pork and your heirloom flour and your quail eggs or whatever else. So the more things you have there, the better. And it does create a lot more work to have lots of small, inefficient, hopefully not inefficient, but small enterprises rather than one big efficient one. But as far as sales, it's, you know, we're driving all the way to the Bay Area, paying for the spot, setting up the stand, standing there all day. We want to sell as much stuff as possible while we're there. So yeah, we are making a living off the farm and managing to pay for our land, but just barely. So we're not getting rich. But
How many acres do you have?
we farm about 95 total, somewhere in there.
And we were a little bit different. We started as a supplemental income with the broilers and the layers. And it took us about 5 to 7 years to build up enough that we could support our family off of, I'll say agriculture, because it was a combination of a CSA, farmers markets, and a contract grazing business with sheep and goats that made it work for us. But we're in a smaller region as well. We're up in Grass Valley. It's a smaller community. We weren't willing to go down to the Bay Area markets. For us, that would be like a 3 or 4 hour drive. So for us, our focus was on feeding our direct community. And so there was some limitation how big we could get there too.
Yeah, we're really lucky that we
Yeah.
are in the greater Bay Area because it's allowed us to do things we couldn't do other places. Just with what people are willing to pay for food in our area, a lot of the rest of the country, a farm like ours would have much more trouble surviving. But then land would be much cheaper too. So,
And feed.
yeah,
And water.
and feed and less regulation. So I guess it
And
kind
water.
of evens out.
And
Yeah.
feed, yeah, so.
California's a good market, but yeah, your costs are very high.
Production costs higher than
Yeah.
market rate costs.
With your olives, and how do you make sure like your chickens don't exactly eat the olives? Is there anything you do to?
So all of the olives we have chickens in right now are young, they're not producing yet, or the ones we're producing are separate. We prune them up high so that the chickens, they could fly up in there or eat the ones that fall, but it's not a huge problem. We'll have to, before we harvest, you're supposed to pull out the animals 120 days ahead of time. So when the chickens are in there, the olives will be small and underripe, and then when we put them back in after harvest, they can eat. In fact, it'd be great for them to eat anything that's left on the ground after that. Our plan with the olives and almonds and in the future, possibly anything else that we can, pistachios maybe, is we'd like to try one of those shakers that has a wraparound umbrella on it. I want to try one of those. They have those now, so that you're you don't have to shake the almonds onto the ground like traditionally do and then sweep it up. So the problem with that is they kill the whole orchard floor completely. I mean, half of California is bare almond orchard floors. And so if we can keep the grass alive in there, it'd be much more beneficial for the soil by catching them like that. So I've seen those things work before. I haven't seen any around here, but I'd like to try that.
For your almonds as well as
Yeah,
olives.
and it would work for oil olives, not for hand-picked olives, but for oil varieties it would work. We'll see.
If you did that off-ground harvesting, like how would you be drying the almonds up?
Yeah, you'd have to spread them back out and dry them in a separate drying area. So it'd be a little more work. You'd have to have a big pad of some sort and spread it out. So we'll see how it goes.
I worked in almond orchards this summer and there weren't too many. I didn't get to speak to too many growers, but it didn't seem like people were that open to that idea because of that trade-off.
Yeah, it would be more labor, but again, we'll have to charge more for the almonds. So we'll see. Well, it's a model that I think I'm hoping to make work. You know, purposely integrating animals and orchards together, like planting the orchard for that, rather than just sticking some animals in the orchard, actually laying out the orchard with the purpose of putting animals in later. So we'll see how it goes.
Benefits of soil health.
Yeah, it could infuse
Yeah.
soil health.
And spreading, getting the roots to go farther is
Yeah, and reducing.
unusual, but useful.
Yeah, I think so. Hope so.
And the increase in eggs or whatever production from using the land and will help offset the increased cost of home.
Exactly. Instead of having a completely separate pasture where you raise your chickens and you still paint it to irrigate it, having them live in there most of the year. So we'll have some separate pasture where we can pull the chickens out, put them in that third of the year we can't have them in there, but the other 2/3 of the year we can integrate them in.
And around the harvest cycle. Right?
Yeah.
The 100 variety. So.
So almonds are harvested earlier than olives, so you can still have them in the olives even when you couldn't have them in the almonds. You can have them in the citrus even longer, you know. So if you have things staggered like that, then you have less time where you couldn't have your chickens in your orchards.
Dear buyers, show any concern having animals on your olives, orchards or almonds? Concern in terms of food safety, or you see a change?
No, I mean, most people love that idea because we sell everything directly to people, and
Yeah.
you tell them that and they're all about that. So, yeah, maybe if we're selling them to maybe an institutional buyer, they would, but everything we do is pretty small scale, so it's direct to consumer. And again, if we pull them out 120 days ahead of time and none of the fruit ever hits the ground, I don't think it's a big issue.
Almonds are exempt now from the FISMA, food safety.
Oh, yeah.
They can temporarily exempt. And the wine grapes.
So almonds and wine grapes are
And
exempt from FISMA.
hops, I think so.
You mean they're exempt from that?
From one, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
unless if you're organic.
Uh-huh.
But they are temporarily exempt from the list from the food safety law.
So if someone is interested in farming or poultry farming, what are the resources can someone find just on how to acquire, maybe to rent land or find? What I'm trying to ask is how easy is it to find space or land to do what you guys are doing?
Land is expensive in California, so buying it is tough to start out with for sure. Yeah, trying to find someone who has some unused land with water would be the best, but that's again kind of tough to do.
One resource for looking for land is California Farm Link.
Yeah, there actually is a lot of land available on there.
So if you go to California Farm Link, you can see listings of different properties that people want to either lease or rent or
Yeah.
share
Yeah,
property,
it's
sell.
probably the best spot.
We have leased all of our land. We don't own any land.
Uh-huh.
So we started small and worked up, but for us, leasing land has worked the best because for our operation, we wouldn't be able to make it by purchasing land in California, but FarmLink is a good one. I know there's other organizations, in our area, Sierra Harvest also keeps a list of families or landowners that would like their land to be used, so there might be other resources.
There are a number of creative ways to go about it, including certain, I think FarmLink would be my first go-to.
Yeah.
CCUF, I think, has some listings. I don't know if Community Alliance with California Certified Organic Farmers, the organic certifier.
And you can start off, especially with broilers, in a pretty small area. You can do a lot in a small area. And I suggest that with anything, start off very small, because inevitably at first things will go wrong and don't go out and build a massive chicken coop because you'll find out that you don't like this design about it. Just start off small and simple. I mean, chickens, they really just need a mobile box with a roof on it that keeps them safe, keeps them dry. If they're layers, in a spot to roost, a spot to lay, but nothing fancy. It's simple, and then make refinements from there. I've seen a lot of people start off with a super fancy, heavy thing that they then abandon because it's just too difficult to move around.
And we'll be focusing more on economics next week, but there are a number of useful calculators that I can send out on a resource list, or you can find that if you do some calculations for your enterprises on paper first, if it works on paper, then it probably has a little better chance of working in reality. So testing things out on small scales, even though there's definitely scales of efficiency too. You can try things out on a smaller scale, but to really make it a business, there are a number of different leaps, I guess.
Yes, start small first, because you don't want your problems to be big problems initially, or it will discourage you altogether.
We have another speaker next week, and we'll be talking about that in much more detail.
Yeah, and every time you try something the first time, pretend that if this completely failed, you wouldn't be out of business, or
Right.
So use money that you can sacrifice if everything goes wrong, just in case.
Right, one of the questions is how chalk it up. Can you chalk it up to learning?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is the cost of education?
Yeah.
Yes.
More than this?
And is it a job or a hobby?
That's a really good question.
Mhm.
And how many of you are interested in like actually starting a business, or how many of you are already in business? We didn't do a little go around the room. You have the business now?
Kinda. I just graduated California Farm Academy. And so some of the group in that class are actually farming and like incorporating.
We have a few more minutes. Yes, there's a few more questions.
What were your backgrounds before coming to farming?
I can start. I was raised in 4-H and FFA, so I grew up on 20 acres, definitely not raising poultry, but raising beef cattle up until I started having kids, and then started raising poultry on a small scale. I started with 25 broilers the very first time, and then went to 50, and then went to 100. So kind of baby stepped up, making sure that my fails weren't huge fails.
And did you raise Cornish cross?
I did. I mostly raised Cornish cross. I did do Freedom Rangers a little bit, but my market wanted the Cornish cross at the time. So.
Yeah.
And I grew up on a large scale farm, no animals, just cannery tomatoes and tons of different crops. But and I worked a few different farms. Didn't study ag in college, but then about a year, 2 years out of college, we started our farm. So we've been doing it for a while.
Questions?
One more actually. Have you considered doing the CSA, and if you have, why has that not been a good route?
We've thought about it. Meat CSAs, they're pretty expensive because meat adds up pretty quickly. And we found people aren't that willing to commit to like a certain amount of meat or eggs all year round, like they would with vegetables. But we haven't really tried it. We did something similar with milk. We had people buy shares and then we gave them the same amount of milk every week. And that kind of worked. People would want to change around all the time. Yeah, it might work, but it's just, we found farmers markets. People can come shop, buy whatever they want, or come to our farm and buy whatever they want to be more beneficial. But I'm not saying it wouldn't work. We just haven't really wanted to do it.
Yeah, for me, our CSA was, I felt was very successful for us. But then our farmers market wasn't as successful. We didn't make as much money. So it just depends on that niche market. We had about 35 families consecutively year round. And we included eggs, pork, chicken, Thanksgiving turkey, and sometimes lamb in there as well. The hardest thing for me was, where do you store all of your frozen products for any period of time? You know, we'd harvest most of the beef in the fall because they're not gaining very much during the winter months, but you still need product to carry you through those winter months. And then there were a few months during the winter that your eggs would start dwindling, and then there'd be a month without eggs before everybody started picking up. So it's just a balancing act. And if you, it was another thing that I started with just a couple families, and I kind of saw how it went for a few months. And then by the time we got to the end of my farmer's market, I added some more families based on how much meat I had in the freezer. But it ended up just being a logistical, how do you balance it? Do you have storage on farm? Do you have storage off farm? I had both at the time, so I was moving meat a lot.
We have that same problem.
And it was a lot of moving of frozen meat.
Yeah, I'm glad to do that too. And I've heard from CSA producers, I don't know if it's always the case, but that in general, in the past 10 years, CSAs have gotten a little bit tougher because there's more competition now. Used to be, if you wanted good produce or pasture-raised meat, you had to find a farmer, and which often you had to find a CSA. But now there are increasingly more and more farmers markets everywhere. Safeway has organic produce. There are services like Butcher Box who will deliver supposedly pasture-raised meat to your door. So it's just, there are more options for people now. So you have to a lot, really dedicated people, which there are still out there, but it's maybe a little tougher than it was a decade ago.
And, go ahead.
Oh, what type of water systems do you use and how do you keep them clean?
For the chickens, we have small waters with float valves in them, and so every morning we'll just go out there and dump it out or quickly scrub it out, and let it fill up again with fresh water. The one problem we have is that, and move to a new spot. So if we do have drips there, which you inevitably do, you'll start off at least a day in a dry spot. The biggest problem we have is with hot water in the summer, because we use hoses. And so we're having a continual project of trenching and adding more spigots all over the farm, but it takes a while because, you know, it can get 110 degrees in the summer and you have a black hose out of the ground. It gets pretty hot pretty quickly. So if that does happen, we'll bring trailers right the animals that the float valves can run off of by again just trenching and trying to install more water points everywhere.
And we were using big bell waters with 5-gallon buckets with a little hose that fed the bell water.
Yeah, for the broilers or anyone
Yeah.
enclosed in cage, which is where we start our lane hens in an enclosed kind of salads style coop, which we move, or ours are a little taller, so I can perch in there, but same basic idea. But bell waters work well. Just in the summer, they fill up with algae quickly, so you have to clean them out a lot. Because you don't want to fill them up in the morning and then you get out there in the afternoon. Chickens haven't had water for 10 hours when it's hot, you know, so you have to keep an eye on those.
They'll eat much better if they have cool water.
Yeah, definitely.
As you develop your business, are there sources of information? You mentioned the UC Farm Business Planning course. Are there other sources of information that are kind of your go-to resources that have been specialized on?
Other farms are always the best, like anytime you take a farm tour or see what other people are doing. Books can be good, although I haven't found any good book on lane hens out there, really. YouTube is great. I once heard someone describe themselves as a Craigslist YouTube farmer. They got all their Craigslist and got all their hens on YouTube. So, I mean, there's everything on YouTube now. So, yeah, that's probably the best source of information.
That's funny. And I think, I don't know if there's any other questions from people who are not in the room. I think somebody earlier asked whether there were design or plans somewhere. And I think if you're not familiar with the American Pasture and Poultry Producers Association, APPA, I do believe they have some design, some plans on their website.
And they have a good publication too. That has been one of my go-to publications, as well as Stockman Grass Farmer, which covers more than just poultry. It's more of a multi-species approach, but Stockman Grass Farmer.
And Joel Salatin's old book, Pasture Poultry Profits, it's mostly on broilers, but it's actually pretty good. He has a lot of good information.
That's on the back table if you want to peruse it.
Sometimes you just have to pull information from a lot of different sources because people are different and different microclimates and doing different things and have different markets, and so you kind of have to just pull.
Yeah, we're farming in California, whereas in the
Yeah.
Northeast or Arizona is way different than.
Right, and even the environments you're working in, and some markets, I think are completely.
Yeah.
And.
So yeah, look at what people around you are doing and then copy them first and then make modifications after that. Would probably be the best way.
And before we, as we were preparing for these workshops, a few different people asked about predator protection. So you said dog. And,
Yeah.
And electric fencing is helping. The dog is really necessary. The temperament. Good.
And electric fence is hot as you can get it. Like buy the biggest charger you can get. Plug-in is better than battery. The batteries wear out. They're not as strong. So, but that gets expensive. The chargers and the fences and everything. But that if you don't actively try to stop them, predators are the biggest area of loss. At least in our area, because and you're probably the same way, surrounded by hills with predators. If you're in the middle of lots of other farmland, miles away from any riparian areas, you're probably a lot safer. But I mean, we even have to cage every tree against deer, you know, so it's set up everything coming through there.
Well, predators are unique to your areas too.
Yeah.
I think our biggest
Get to know
predator was aerial predators, and geese would work sometimes. I had a rooster in with some pullets that would work sometimes. It kind of, it
So
seemed
get to
like
know
they
your
would
predators.
figure out, yeah, it's good to know your predators, and
And we'll be
dogs are
talking about this a little
definitely-
bit on each of the subsequent.
yeah. I have found personalities, and it is about 50%. Some dogs work, some dogs don't. It's just the way they are.
Yeah, we've tried geese, they all got eaten. Yeah, dogs are really the only thing that can be out there 24 hours a day. I mean, I've stayed up many times all night long looking for predators, and then, or, you know, stay up to 4 a.m. and then they're watching you, and then at 4:05 when you go inside, they come out. So raccoons have nothing else to do all night except wait for to get in your chicken coop. We've had those the cameras, night vision cameras out there, and they record the time, and they'll, you know, if the sun goes down at 6 p.m., they'll start at 6:05 all night long. They're there trying to get in until the sun rises. You know, there's nothing else to do. Yeah.
What are your favorite hatcheries?
Tried a lot of hatcheries. Lately, Ideal Hatchery in Texas has been good.
Freedom Rangers come from.
There's the Freedom Ranger hatchery, but then there's a lot more and more hatcheries now that carry a version of the Freedom Ranger.
Okay.
But the Freedom Ranger hatchery, they were called something else. Now they're called Freedom Ranger hatchery. What else? Hoover's hatchery, or no, Town Line hatchery was good. Hoover hatchery. Town Line, they're in Minnesota or something. But
I was gonna say, I found whichever one can get them to you the fastest.
Yeah.
Because they do the best when you can get them within 24,
Yeah.
before that 48 hours, when they start getting over that. So sometimes it's just where the weather is, or what's in California, or I used to place orders, and I'd bounce between hatcheries. There was no hatchery that I thought was.
yeah, ordering
This
from
is it.
Minnesota in February could be bad. So they might get stuck in snow somewhere.
Right.
Ordering from a hot place in the summer when they sit in a hot postal truck. That heat is worse than cold.
Yeah.
Because they keep themselves pretty warm, but yeah, they sit in the sunny spot or in a hot truck for even a short time, and you can get a whole box of dead chicks. So
And an NPIP hatchery, National Poultry Improvement Program. Is a good way to have some assurance about disease management in the hatchery. I think this has been a rich discussion. Any final thing? Then we'll move on to our final speaker. Any last burning question or comment from you? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For coming.
thank you.